Hello and welcome to my art update podcast thingy. This is episode 41, Assembling. Just the usual hoo-ha here. The purpose of the podcast is to update people who know me being Andrew Woolner, about what's been going on creatively for me over the last week. Of course, keep screwing that up. I did that last week too. Some life updates might get bundled into that as well. So, you know what, if you don't know me, and you've never heard of me, this is not a hard sell. You only listen if you're getting something out of it. Actually, that goes for you if you know me as well. Only listen if you're getting something out of it. If this is your first update and you haven't been keeping up with me over the years and decades, I suggest going back and checking out update number 1 and maybe update number 2 to bring yourself up to speed before jumping back here. I highly suggest that you don't binge this. I think that would probably be Woolner overload. And, because a lot of this is just me blah, 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 droning on and reading things off a list. So I think these may be interesting if you listen to them as they happen. And probably less interesting if you listen to like a whole bunch of them in a row. I will do a summary at the end of the year. So if you'd feel like you have not, if you're just starting now, you've missed a lot of stuff, but I'll be condensing and summarizing the last recording I make this year. Or the first recording I make next year, depending on how that date falls. So yeah, don't worry about it too much. All right, updates. YTG updates. Okay, yesterday we had the Zoom meeting for the winter mini show. So in that meeting, there was Marie, Loic, Julia, and Merritt, as well as myself, of course. And yeah, we had a further discussion about the theme, which, as I mentioned last week, is consent. So we dug more into the ideas, like an idea was, we talked about how coercion invalidates consent. So maybe coercion is something we can build some scene or some moment around that. And I had the question, how would a society that is based on consent and values consent highly, how would that society work? What would it need? Because I would suggest that we currently do not live, and humans probably have not for a very long time, if ever, lived in a society that properly values consent. So what would this society need? I'm thinking, obviously, of sort of some sci-fi, some science fiction. Sorry, sci-fi is derogatory. Some science fiction, some speculative fiction, utopia or something. And what's coming to mind, of course, is Ian M. Banks's The Culture, which is a spacefaring culture in a series of novels that he wrote between the late 1970s, early 1980s, and his death a few years ago. But I'm just finishing up a reread of that series, and so that's on my mind a lot. And that society values consent very highly. So that's sort of what I'm thinking about. But I'm So anyway, we're gonna bring that in, not that series, but maybe that idea. We thought about consent around AI and large language models. We talked about it. We discussed consent around data brokerage, where, you visit someplace and it is collecting information, maybe with your knowledge, but it's perhaps sharing it to people who you would not have consented to people or corporations or governments that you have not consented to share your information with. And then, of course, you could make a whole other show about the idea of privacy and what that is, and how in some ways it's a fairly modern concept. Anyway, so that's a whole different show. Loic and Merritt, I think Loic might have brought this up and Merritt expanded on it. They brought up that there's a difference between moral/ethical consent and legal consent. And I thought that was a good point, and that could help generate some material. And here's a question that might be a whole other show. Do dead people have rights? Because as far as consent goes, we like to honor people's wishes to some extent after they're gone. But at some point, someone who's dead can't change their mind. They can't be convinced of something. So how long does their consent matter? How long do their rights matter for? And how do those rights, if they have them, if they conflict with the rights of the living, how do we value those? How should we value those? But that, again, could be a whole other show. So I'm not sure we'll get too deeply into that. I've always intended to do a show on the subject of sort of immortality. And one version of that would be that dead people are dead and they're out of the sort of real world, but they live maybe in a virtual world or something where they can still interact with living people. And do they have rights? What kind of rights do they have in terms of their interactions with people who are still alive? Anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent there, but it's a fascinating idea, and I've been wanting to do a show about that for more than a decade now. Just have not found the right time and the right group. All right. Anyway, so it was an amazing discussion. We start rehearsals on Monday, which I will be late for at first rehearsal. I'll explain why in a minute. Any other YTG updates? Oh, yeah, other YTG updates. The tax forms haven't come yet. So I was talking about, I want to get the tax stuff all done in September. Well, we're now almost 2 weeks into October, and usually the tax documents for YTG arrive near the end of September, and they have not this time. They have not. So it's kind of frustrating because I have to do those manually. There's no way I can do them electronically the way I've got the company set up. So I had to do them manually and I had to hand deliver them. So I'm really waiting for those to come in so I can get that done before we really start getting into rehearsals and other stuff that's going on. Okay. Other updates. Nerd Night coming up on October 20th, Friday, October 20th. So that will be, for those of you in Japan, that's going to be an 8 o'clock start. So backtrack it from there. I believe that would be I want to say 7 o'clock start. We haven't done the time change for the winter yet, right? East Coast time, 7 a.m. Tokyo.nerdnight.com. Night is spelled Nite. You can get your tickets there. Free tickets if you want to watch it online, and 1,000 yen if you want to come in person. John Matthews has confirmed that he will be back doing MC stuff. So I need to give him a bunch of updates and do the slides and everything. So that's got to happen. I don't know when that's going to happen. Next Wednesday, I guess. That's looking at my calendar. That's the next time I'm going to have to work if I don't get it done tomorrow. And there's a lot of stuff to get done tomorrow. All right. So that's Nerd Night. Podcasting. Well, we were supposed to record this weekend, but actually it looks like the schedules, Pete's schedule, my schedule, and Kat's schedule do not match up this weekend. October weekends have gotten a lot busier for me than I had expected. There's a lot of morning stuff that wasn't there when we started setting these dates. So we might have to push this off another week. Or if Pete's available weekdays, might have to do it in a weekday. Okay, photography. So photography, a lot has been happening. I booked, so last Friday, I believe, I was contacted out of the blue by a Spanish couple who are newlyweds, and they wanted to put on their wedding clothes and do a Tokyo photo shoot. So that was very last minute. We were talking about shooting on Monday, but Monday was supposed to rain. So we actually shot Sunday evening. So we had, it was a little bit of a stressful shoot. I decided on Harajuku because I thought, we can shoot at Meiji Jingu, and, which is like a shrine. And then we've got sort of Harajuku, it's very Tokyo, and there's some places around there that aren't maybe as well known on, say, the Instagram circuit. And I wanted to try some of those places out. I just thought everything was sort of close together there, and that would be a good place. In retrospect, I don't know Harajuku as well as I know some other areas, so maybe it wasn't such a great idea. It ended up being kind of a stressful shoot because I was fighting low light because they arrived a bit late. They took a taxi from their hotel, which probably actually took longer than taking a train. So they didn't get there till almost 5, and we were supposed to meet at 4:30. And the upshot of that was Meiji Jingu actually closed at 4:40. It wasn't supposed to close till 5:20. So I'd thought if we'd been on schedule, we would have had, getting in there an hour before. They sometimes will start kicking people out 30 minutes before closing. I thought, okay, we've got till 5. But they actually slammed those doors shut at 4:40. So that was a bit frustrating. We had to go shoot at another location that wasn't quite what I'd planned. Yeah. So I did that. It was a little bit stressful. I've got some shots. They're not. I haven't finished their stuff. I need to get those to them sort of next week. But I've done sort of a first pass on those photos, and I've got 4 that I really like that I've posted in the notes for this episode. So if you are looking at this on a podcast player, there will be a link that you can click through to the website so you can see those 4 photos. Right. And then, so this is like after months and months, I barely, I had that shoot in August. I had the shoot back in April, and those are the only other shoots I had. I just got 2 now in like the span of a week because I got contacted on Tuesday from someone representing the Indian embassy to shoot an event there. And on top of that, I got to charge a lot closer to what I think I'm worth as a photographer. So that was really good. But man, both of these, you think, okay, Andrew, what are you doing? What have you done that you're bringing these people are finding you? And it's just quite random. The Spanish couple, I think I don't know what they searched, but I think they did some kind of web search or Facebook search or something. And they found me somehow. I actually do need to ask when I deliver the photos. I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask the husband how they found me. But it sounded like something like that. And then the shoot for the Indian embassy was actually being arranged by a guy who I met when I photographed a TEDx event at Yokohama National University 5 years ago, 2018. He was one of the student organizers of that event, and now I guess he works for I think he represents somehow the Gujarat government, which is a regional government in India, and they're the ones who are running this event. And so he's associated with them somehow. He's a liaison or whatever, and so he remembered me from that shoot when they needed a photographer, and luckily we'd friended each other on Facebook. And so he reached out. So that both of those were kind of both those shoots random and kind of last minute. Luckily, the Indian embassy shoot wasn't so last minute that I actually had time to, prepare a contract. Last time I did a corporate shoot, there was no time to set terms or anything other than the payment terms. So yeah, I'm really excited about shooting, and that's going to be Monday. So that's why I'm going to be late for the YTG rehearsal on Monday, is because I have a 3-hour shoot in the morning. Yeah, so we'll see. You'll see if I feel it was a nice artistic shoot, maybe there'll be some photos from that posted here next week. If it's just some horrible auditorium with horrible lighting and I'm just trying to make the best of it, maybe I won't do that. We'll see. Life updates, I'm just keep repeating, I'm going to be in Canada December 13th on this year. So if you're listening to this and you're going to be in or around Toronto or Kitchener this winter, get in touch. Let's get together. I want to see people. I want to hang out. I want to see people I haven't seen in a long time. I feel like there was another life update, but I have forgotten it. I'm still working on those goals, on that goal sheet. Actually, I finished the goal sheet, and now I have to break out and start writing sort of business plans so I can decide which possible direction is most viable to ensure that I can meet my goals in terms of annual income, in terms of the kind of activities I want to have time to do. Yeah, all that stuff. And I'm debating whether I'm going to share that with this podcast. It might be too money oriented to put on an arts update podcast. If you have an opinion on this, please let me know. Anna or Marie, I suppose, because you're the ones that I know for sure are listening. Maybe Jeff. Pete, are you listening? Yeah, so just let me know. Anyway, but until next week, yeah, things are just getting assembled. Things are just getting assembled for the show, and we'll see how it goes. That's why the title of this week was Assembly. Okay, Andrew out.